their projects. In fact, some companies are restarting their projects which would have come to a screeching halt during the COVID-19 pandemic period. At the same time, companies might be reshaping and rethinking their project or embarking on new projects altogether due to the aggressive changes in the macro environment brought about by COVID-19. In fact, in our first session 2 weeks ago on July 9th, a Thursday afternoon, very much like this, we spoke about the strategic direction of companies in a COVID-19 environment. And our first webinar session was delivered by one of our very own faculty members, Wesley Bridgemohanson. Since that session, we have had great reviews, right, and great comments on that first session because it was really relevant to what is happening in the project management arena, as well as in the COVID-19 environment. In fact, I urge you, if you missed that session, it is available on our YouTube channel. Over the past 2 weeks, we have had over 335 views of that video recording from our first session. So building on that success, we would like to continue with our second session here this afternoon, which will be delivered again by two of our very own faculty members within the project management department at the college. A procurement specialist by training and tacit experience, Ms. Teresa Frederick, and a trained architect, Mr. Akindele Lobi. Before we start and kickstart our exciting discussion here this afternoon, I would like to give you an overview of all the sessions planned in this project management webinar series. So our first session, held 2 weeks ago, revisiting the strategic direction of companies in a COVID-19 environment, had over 335 views over the last 2 weeks, with the latest update coming from our IT department. Session 2 is set to kickstart in a few moments. Session 3, ICT and adapting to the new norm, will be delivered by two esteemed IT professionals in the local fraternity on Thursday, 6th August. Our fourth session, procurement management in a COVID-19 environment, will be delivered by Ms. Teresa Frederick, a procurement specialist and an adjunct member of staff at the college, on Thursday, 20th August. And our last installment, our season finale, delivering on projects in a COVID-19 environment, will be delivered on Thursday, 3rd September 2020. So all these exciting sessions are planned for you. So depending on your area of interest, your expertise, your organization, you might be thinking which of the sessions you would like to participate in. We urge you, just like a DJ, do not touch that dial. We would like you to participate in all sessions over the next few weeks. In fact, the reviews have been so good. Many of you, the participants, have been calling for a webinar session on the impact COVID-19 has had on the domain occupational safety and health. So we are thinking at the embryo stages about a 6th session, right, with a health and safety team. And that's very, very exciting. At this point in time, I think I would have said enough. I would like to introduce our first presenter for this afternoon under the theme, Rethinking the Project Portfolio, Project Identification and Selection. Mr. Akindele Lobi is an architect, sustainability consultant, project manager, and lecturer with over 20 years experience in the construction industry. He has held senior positions in architectural, construction, and real estate development companies. Akindele holds a BH, and Akindele, I hope I pronounced that certification correctly, a BSc in architectural engineering from the University of Miami, and a MSc in economics from the University of the West Indies. This afternoon, Akindele will be kickstarting our second session of Cipriani Labor College Project Management webinar series. I am very excited to kickstart this webinar series with you all here this afternoon. I know many of you may be having lunch or working lunch. Some of you may be accessing this webinar in the comfort of your home, very much like myself. I am presenting at home where I should be presenting at the college, so I hope my superiors are not watching. I know some of you may be accessing in your vehicles, accessing it through your mobile devices and so on. Wherever you may be located at this point in time, please feel free to ask questions, post your comments to the message window to the right of your screen. Akindele is very engaging and he will be asking questions during the presentation in addition to the formal question and answer session at the end. So without further ado, at this point in time, I would like to welcome Mr. Akindele Lobi to the virtual podium. Akindele?
Thank you very much, Nigel. I'm honored to be part of this auspicious webinar.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you for that introduction. So I'm gonna share my screen now and ask that you listen intently with the mindset to learn and even share. Okay. All right. So as you have heard, this is the webinar 2. I'll be doing part 1 of this webinar. My colleague Teresa Frederick would be doing the part 2. This particular session is titled Rethinking the Project Portfolio in a COVID-19 Environment. So really very, very topical. So what's the presentation outline? We're going to look at the organization project management structure, or OPM structure, and its relationship to the strategic plan. And we'll talk about the strategic plan a bit too. We're going to look at some key examples of COVID-19 strategies, techniques in portfolio reevaluation and realignment to the strategic plan, and examples of responses by 2 companies. Again, we would have heard Nigel just give an overview of our inaugural session 2 weeks ago by our colleague. Just as a reminder, we looked at the analytical techniques for strategic planning 2 weeks ago. I encourage you all to, if you have not participated, to do so, avail yourself of the recording. And 2 weeks ago, we looked at the macro analysis, industry analysis, and external and internal analysis. And all of that would have been tools and techniques towards developing a strategic plan. Well, what are some of the issues that we actually have to companies and organizations are dealing with as regards to COVID-19? And as long as we are living in Trinidad and Tobago and breathing air, COVID-19 has impacted us. But it's a global pandemic, and we could see that it has had great impact, not just for us in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, but internationally. The World Bank says that there is to be a 5.2% contraction in global GDP. There's an 18% decline in the working hours in the Americas. So those are people being sent home or working less hours, unfortunately, permanently losing jobs. For those who have children, Trinidad and Tobago, along with about 150 other countries, closed all schools, and that has great impact for working parents and guardians. 80 countries also closed all non-essential workplaces, so that would have affected us here as well. It even had an impact on the already depressed oil price that will affect us in Trinidad and Tobago. The benchmark Brent crude plummeted 85% from January to late April. And this would be really important for our Caribbean neighbors further north. There's been a precipitous decline of between 58 and 78% of international tourist arrivals, according to the UN World Tourism Organization. So let's look at the strategic plan. A strategic plan, it links projects to business strategies and company vision and mission. And for those of you all in organization, you would recognize that having plans is very important, and having strategic plans are even more important. And these are the components here of a strategic plan we look at very briefly. Organization should have a vision. Where does that company want to see itself in the future, and a mission indicating how we're going to get there. A set of internal values for that organization. And importantly, their goals and strategies for those for the organization to meet their mission and vision. And initiatives are considered and managed to achieve those goals and strategies. And lastly, we have the development and the implementation of projects, again, to meet strategic goals and objectives. So let's do a sort of deeper dive and look at things from with a project management lens. So this diagram here gives us sort of the anatomy of the organizational project management. Looks a bit similar to the previous slide. We have vision and mission there, but let's look at something here. So we have organization, strategy, and objective. This is the stage of, or the component where there's the development aspect of the strategic plan and implementation. We also have the portfolio management and strategic planning. This is where one is actually doing the deployment and also oversight. Very important, and we're going to spend some time looking at this particular area. And we also have the delivery. This is the execution, the management of ongoing operations and authorized programs and projects. And then, of course, very important, there is the resources that are required, very important resources that are required in order to achieve these goals and objectives. So we all know that COVID-19 has changed the context of the world, really, all aspects of the world. And there would be a requirement for businesses or organizations to respond and have a strategy. So we're going to look at some of these. So of course, increased uncertainty and risk would be one that would impact all of us. Reduced capacity, and that could be as a result of limited resources, perhaps there would be laying off of staff. There would be the inability to accomplish certain things because of a break in supply chain and things like that. So capacity would be reduced. Of course, with uncertainty and risk would also come dampened demand from consumers for investments and the like. Revenue would reduce. Persons are purchasing less or less appetite or interest for spending. Of course, we have new health and safety requirements, social distancing and mask wearing and stay-at-home measures and things like that. And then we also have the change in workflow and certain processes, right? And then the strategies to address these, and later on we'd be looking at that in some more detail with two examples. So of course, with which we want to reduce risk exposure, and what sort of strategies we're going to have in order to implement that is something that businesses would need to consider. With less resources, we'd have to do the best with what we have, and we'd want to consider increasing efficiencies. How could we look at improving systems? How could we look at reducing waste or looking for increased productivity? A business would want to increase demand, via paying attention to their brand in marketing and advertising and outreach. Increasing revenue could be via streamlining offerings or having new offerings or new ways of delivering. Health and safety requirements call for new measures and calls for some innovation, as well as to how is business, our goods and services going to be delivered in an environment that requires a greater health measures, and also to improving operation systems. So online methods of doing business become very important. So we want to look at re-evaluating the portfolio. and so let's give some considerations as to what is a portfolio. So a portfolio is defined as projects, programs, subsidiary portfolios, and operations managed as a group to achieve strategic objectives. And that's the Project Management Institute's definition. Organizational and portfolio planning impact the components by means of prioritization based on risk, based on funding, and other considerations. It allows organizations to see how strategic goals are reflected in the portfolio. It enables the implementation and coordination of appropriate portfolio, program, and project governance. So you could see the importance. I'm going to go back to some slides here. And between the development of strategy and the delivering of strategy is the deployment. So at this level in the management of the organization, you'd find looking at the portfolio and ensuring that the portfolio is aligned to organizational strategy is very, very important and very significant. So let's look at one of the first areas that one would want to, an organization would want to reevaluate this portfolio. And we want to look at the alignment to strategy. And this is actually really very key because I would have mentioned before that the goal of the organization is to meet these objectives, be it improvement in technology, be it new products, be it streamlining your human resource, whatever that strategy is. The portfolio, which would include sub-portfolios, programs, and projects, need to be aligned with that strategy for success. And so part of that exercise would actually be looking at the programs and the projects in that portfolio to ensure that it is meeting those requirements and meeting those goals. Let's look at the project selection criteria. So with COVID-19, and we would have seen that what an organization or a business, an NGO might be facing would be new risks, we'd have to say. Dampened demands for products and for services. And so lots of projects that may have been greenlit prior to the onslaught of COVID-19 would need to be reviewed. What would have been the project selection criteria in the past? One might have to consider that projects that have a higher risk profile may be projects that are not done right away, or projects that require very high capital, or maybe more complex, or projects that required, let's say, a collaboration with other organizations and so on, or that would have required travel. Those projects may have to be deprioritized for other projects that require or that are needed for the company to turn around. So the criteria for selecting projects may very well change, and the weighting of the criteria would change. Next, we look at the project business case. Project managers or portfolio managers before embarking on a project would need to present to their management or to the upper management of their organization a business case as to why this project is needed, is important, or aligned with the strategy. Well, external conditions may have changed, and so that business case needs to be reviewed. Things that are looked at in a business case would be return on investment, capital required? Are there any social needs that are to be met, or strategic needs to be met? Maybe in this environment, those things have actually now changed. What may have given a favorable return on investment about a year ago, that project looks less profitable, or certainly is of less strategic value to the organization is on that point. So an exercise of looking at the business case afresh, because the context has changed, would be something that's very important to be done. And next, resource allocation, the structure of resource allocation. Funding and human resource and capital may have been apportioned to projects to increase revenue, or to increase branding, or looking at changing out plant and equipment, or some funds may have been allocated for long-term projects. But now, of course, with a realignment of what is required, the funding may need to shift to solve more immediate problems, or may need to shift from more risky projects to less risky projects. So a review and a reevaluation of how resources are allocated becomes very important and very critical. So we have just here a snapshot of some techniques and approaches to re-evaluating the portfolio. And when we're talking about portfolio, we're talking about the projects and programs that comprise the portfolio. And portfolio managers and managers have this overview and are looking at a range of projects and programs of an organization. So we're going to next look at a company. You'll be familiar with the Coca-Cola company, and certainly many or some of their products. And we have here a quote from John Murphy. He's the CFO of Coca-Cola. And he says, we have made progress on becoming more nimble and faster to adapt, faster to pivot. There's broad alignment and an objective to emerge from the crisis, this is a crisis, with an even stronger leadership position. I don't think we could have been better prepared with respect to overall quality of leadership and clarity and strategic initiatives required to navigate through this. And I just pick up some point, the requirement to be nimble, to be swift, to be fast, to adapt, and to pivot, to turn. They're speaking about alignment. We spoke about that before. Of course, quality leadership is required for change. And strategic initiatives need to be carried out to address the crisis. So at least here with this quote from John Murphy, he is speaking to the strategic mindset of a Coca-Cola as it addresses and responds to COVID-19. And we look quickly at some of the strategies that they've explored. they streamlined the beverage portfolio. Underperforming brands, they've put those aside. Again, focusing on fewer offerings and those that they could actually scale up. So put effort into brands that could scale up in multiple markets, right? So bigger SKUs or SKUs for that allow for less trips to the grocery. So that would be, instead of focusing on selling just a can of Coca-Cola, they would sell their packaging in larger volumes, because people would then pick up maybe a case or things like that because they're going to the grocery less. Those are things that they are focusing on. There was one a brand, AHA, flavored sparkling water that they did launch in the midst of this COVID-19. So they are still innovating and coming up with new brands. They're talking about building touchless solutions. Of course, that's their response to just the whole issue of a requirement for safety and health, and they're looking at strategies to increase their online sales, and so look, prioritizing on packages. And let's look at another organization. This is BP, formerly British Petroleum, right there. Energy company, or certainly traditionally an energy company. And they have found, of course, that their revenue has decreased, and would have mentioned before that the price of oil would have decreased from the beginning of the year to sometime at the end of April by 85%. So no doubt that will impact not just BP, but for several energy companies. So just because of the cost of extracting oil and gas at this time compared to what it would fetch on the market, they've determined to leave some of that fossil fuel in the ground, and as such, they've had to cut the value of their assets by some $17 billion. They've had to trim staff and cutting 10,000 jobs, 15% of their staff. They're also using this opportunity for some innovation and turning towards and transitioning towards green technology and green energy, or sustainable projects. So shifting away from a large carbon footprint towards their future. And in addition to that, they want their operations to be net zero sometime to the latter part of this year. So they are making some strategic shifts, looking down the road and anticipating that oil and gas prices are generally going to be depressed for some time, and the future seems to take into consideration climate control. And in order to streamline the operations, they've sold their petrochemical companies. So you could see both BP and CocaCola, global brands, obviously impacted in different ways, and they are looking to respond strategically to COVID-19. In summary, we looked briefly at the strategic plan and the importance of the strategic plan. We looked at the structure and approach of organization project management. We looked at some COVID-19 general strategies. We looked at an approach for reevaluating the portfolio towards alignment to new organization strategies. And we looked at company responses from two companies that have had to answer the call to act with respect to COVID-19. So I invite questions, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Akindele, for this very insightful and research-driven presentation. At this point in time, we would like to entertain questions. So if you guys have comments, questions, please feel free to post it on the message window to the right of your screen. Any questions at this point in time, please feel free. We can also send, post it to the message window to the right. So I know at this point in time, you guys may be thinking about your questions. Akindele, I particularly enjoyed how you were able to link COVID-19 and the changes it brought about in the macro environment to the vision, the mission, the strategic planning processes of organizations, and how companies at this point in time are rethinking their business strategy as they battle with COVID-19, which is far from over. In our local landscape in Trinidad and Tobago. We saw 2 alleged cases of COVID-19.
Yeah.
And we don't know at this point in time how it may pan out. So in the larger scale, we look at the global scale, what's happening in Fort Lauderdale, in Florida, what is happening in New York and Texas. You can see that the effects of COVID-19 are definitely far-reaching. So we are seeing that it's certainly affecting the project portfolio. And I particularly enjoyed the research on how BP and Coca-Cola in particular are responding to COVID-19. And what struck me is that whilst many companies are pursuing strategies of cost retrenchment in dealing with this looming risk, at the same time, companies are rethinking, they are being innovative, right? They're thinking, they're being innovative, they're expending more resources on research and development. They are seeking to search for alternative pastures. So, in essence, it's going to have an effect on the project portfolio. Some projects will have to be revamped. Some projects altogether may have to stay at a halt. At the same time, it presents an opportunity for companies to rethink their game, right, and craft new projects as COVID-19 runs its course. So thanks very much for really imparting this knowledge to us in a hands-on manner. Any questions, guys? Please feel free to post your comments, post your questions to the message window to the right of your screen, right? Please feel free. My second laptop is not working, right? But that will not curtail the rich discussions taking place here this afternoon. So at this point in time, as we continue with our second webinar session in Cipriani's project management webinar series, we would like to welcome our second presenter, Ms. Teresa Frederick. And Ms. Teresa Frederick is no stranger to the college. She has been with the college for the past 20 years, a trained project a procurement specialist at the college. And I know she will be with the college in physical form as well as spirit for a further 20 years. To ensure I get her tacit experience and her certifications correct, I'm going to read. I know she's smiling. I'm seeing her on video. Ms. Teresa Frederick is a project management and strategic planning consultant with over 20 years experience in the agricultural and MSME sectors. She has worked with both local firms and international agencies. She has a MSc in accounting from the University of the West Indies, a diploma in project formulation and evaluation, a SIPS diploma in procurement and supply, in addition to the project management professional certification from International Project Management Institute, as well as the Kirzner certification. So at this point in time, I would like to introduce Ms. Frederick to the virtual podium as we continue our rich discussions and our second installment of our project management series, Rethinking the Project Portfolio. Teresa?
Good afternoon, and I thank Cipriani for this opportunity to present on one of my pet subjects, project identification and selection. You see, if you choose the wrong project, no matter how well it's implemented, you would not achieve the objective. So this is a very critical area. And as I start, we are looking at basically 5 areas: project objectives, project identification, the strategic alignment, project selection, and project program design. Strategic alignment, we've been speaking about, the last presenter spoke about it, and it holds the project identification and selection together. You have to align to strategy. COVID-19 has resulted in our having to change priorities, change focus, and deal with a world that is rapidly changing. What I'm hoping to achieve is that you'll be able to appreciate the need to design projects. And this is why I brought in project design that satisfy the purposes for which they were authorized. Understand that in prioritizing projects for implementation, there is the need to determine the strategic positioning of the organization and to align projects to strategic objectives. Where I always start in project management is why we do projects. We execute projects to achieve an objective, to resolve a problem. If we do not have the root cause of the problem, we can design a project that tackles the symptoms of the problem, and at the end, we would still have the problem. For example, if you have a situation where workers are leaving, you may say what we need is to look at comparable salaries and to do a whole evaluation there and come up with a new salary structure. And the workers may still leave because the problem might be bad management. If you go to a doctor and you tell him you have a headache, your head is hurting you, he would still ask you where. And it's not a stupid question. The where is because every area has a different cause. So we have to be clinical as we look at projects, that we actually identify the causes of the problem and we target our projects to the causes. Another area we have to look at when we authorize projects is full and unmet need. We have to separate needs from wants. We may want a big house, but what we have is money to rent. Similarly, in projects, we cannot plan massive projects if we do not have the resources, be it financial, be it capacity, the staffing. We have to try and determine what we can successfully implement. So even there, we have to do some kind of evaluation. Take advantage of an opportunity. If I walk through the mall and I see rooms for stores for rent, and what I have is a parlor that is not properly stocked, I know that is not my opportunity. What am I saying? Even in this area, we have to evaluate. We have to look at our resources. We have to look at our networks of our ability to attract assistance, all of that before we launch opportunities. What I'm trying to do is to have you understand that it's important not to spend money on things that are not going to achieve what you want to achieve. Comply with the legal requirements. I am dealing with the area of project selection. A legal requirement is not a project you select, it's a project you have to do. So that here you have to still do an evaluation. You have to still look to see how can I do this most cost effectively and properly. So as we discuss project identification and selection, I want you to keep your eye on the deliverables and understand that the deliverables of a project may not be the When the Ministry of Education gives a contract for a school to be built, The deliverable of that project is the school, but the objective is education. So if the only thing in that is the building of the school, we would not have the education. So that what we may need is a program to get the objective achieved. In this COVID-19 period of a quickly changing environment, limited resources, changing expectations of those we interact with, we have to be clinical in this area, and ensure, for instance, that we have the right solutions to our problems, satisfying needs that are crucial to our successful operations, are exploiting the right opportunities, and most of all, are in compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, especially those concerning health and safety. As we design projects, we have to keep our eyes on the objectives of the projects and cannot waste money on projects that do not achieve the objectives. You all have been hearing a lot about strategy and strategic alignment. I'm just bringing it back in one slide. What is strategy? Is the pattern of actions and business approaches management employ to please customers, build an attractive market position, and achieve organizational objectives. So that if I feel I can hit the market with the lowest goods, my strategy might be cost leadership. If I think I have to have a differentiation strategy, I have to keep bringing on, like the phones, bringing on different types. All of that is going to be part of my strategy. So strategic alignment is the process and the result of linking an organization structure and resources. I have to link what I have with your strategy and business environment. I have to link it to be able to deal with what I'm seeing in the business environment. And the key term to discuss is strategy formulation. This is the development of long-range plans for the effective management of environmental opportunities and threats in light of corporate strengths and weaknesses, the final product of which is the strategic plan. So what is project selection? This is the process of evaluating individual projects or groups of projects and then choosing to implement some set of them so that the objectives of the parent organization will be achieved. An organization's overall business strategy should guide the project selection process and the management of those projects. So what am I saying? When we set up a strategy, for instance, we say we want to penetrate a market. We have to have projects that will help us. Projects bring about change, so that if we may want to develop a product for that market, we have to do a marketing program. We definitely have to start off with research. All of these are projects geared towards helping us to achieve these strategies, to achieve our objectives. This allows for the alignment of projects and strategy and results in more cooperation across the organization, because sometimes you go to an organization and they just say, we're doing projects and we don't understand what we're doing. But if it is aligned and you explain it, and in this COVID-19 environment, you have to do more discussions with your staff. They have to know what is going on. They are fearful, they are concerned, and they are concerned about so many things. So that you have to at least help them to get buy-in to what you're doing. The alignment helps for better performance and the choice of projects that will lead to success. It also facilitates the prioritizing of projects, so that when we select projects, we're going to prioritize them so that we know in which we know how we would go from one to the next. If our alignment is done well, we not only have a proper range of projects, but the prioritizing of projects with the emphasis of the expenditure on the strategic project. But we have to pay attention not to just having projects, but to maintaining what we have. And so that if we do the strategic alignment well and we get our strategic projects well, we would recognize that we also have to pay attention to the operational projects, the legal compliance projects. We will pay more attention to our operational projects in this COVID-19 era of scarce resources. The new Public Procurement and Disposal of Property Act puts a focus on asset retention, not only procurement and disposal. So we're going to have a higher responsibility so that when we acquire assets, we maintain them properly. So where do we get our objectives from? I'm going to do at two levels, at the governmental level and at companies. At the governmental level, we have made commitments to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The world is trying to set goals to have a better world. So they have been adopted by all UN member states, and we are one. These are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. They address the global challenges we face, including those related to poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace, and justice. They recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth. So that as the government puts on projects, we have to ask, what is happening with respect to our commitment to reduce poverty? What is happening with respect to our commitment for the citizens to have a better life? So that it is not, we're not just looking at the deliverables of the projects, but we're looking at where we should focus on in terms of the results. We can look at Vision 2030, the National Development Strategy. This aims to provide a broad socio-economic development framework. It is intended to provide for an orderly long-term development process, but it includes the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We could look at our medium-term policy frameworks, but what about companies? Companies look at their strategic plan. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to show you how government drills down from the themes they set themselves to the goals to the initiatives. Vision 2030 has 5 development themes, one of which is putting people first, nurturing our greatest asset. So we have to ask ourselves, how is government going with this? One of the goals it has set under this theme is citizens will have access to adequate and affordable housing. So you see the drill down from the overall coming down to the goal and to the initiative. The strategic initiative, one of them, close the gap between the demand and supply of housing. So when you see new towns being constructed, that is part. The towns, the deliverables would be the cutting of the ribbon to give out homes, but the theme is putting people first. The theme is ensuring that our people are all right. This theme acknowledges that our citizens are central to our development and in fact are our greatest assets. In this COVID-19 environment, we have to recognize the importance of our people. There are some that may need help, but there are some that are critical for our survival. So don't just think, let us cut staff. Let us think in terms of what our people can do and how we can reposition them if necessary to do the best that they can. We must, the Vision 2020 indicates that we must create a society in which all the basic needs are met and each individual is valued and given the opportunity to contribute and to self-actualize. But when we set our goals and we set our strategies, we have to look at what are our critical success factors. These are the things that must go right in order to ensure that we're going to be able to achieve what we set out to achieve. And government in the 2020 Vision document stated that in many areas of our national life, in both the public and private sectors, productivity is demonstrably low. And I want to repeat that. Productivity is demonstrably low. The citizens have a lot of expectations, but we have to get productivity up. This affects the country's competitiveness, not only by increasing the cost of production, but also by increasing the cost of doing business. All right, so this is one of the things I want you to take on board. Even as you look at your organization, how do you increase productivity? Especially if you have to do it with less staff. So that is how government drills down from the high goals into strategies and into projects. How do companies do this alignment? If we decide that we want to become the leader in the restaurant industry in Trinidad and Tobago, we can set goals. We can say we're going to renovate the restaurant to reflect the desired image, because a leader has to have a proper image. And I urge you to start looking in this COVID environment as at your brand and how people perceive your brand. We would want to expand our market share and always try to buy sales by 30%. Anytime we are setting something to move up or to decrease, etc., we have to have a baseline so that we have to know what is our existing market share. We want to sustain customer satisfaction ratings of over 80%. When we set these goals, it means we have to put things in place to be able to measure them. We want to expand the menu to provide a range of new dishes, especially for the rising market of health-conscious persons. So this would have come out, that last one would have come out from the PESA analysis that I will speak to later on, in that they recognize in the social that people are changing in terms of their values, in terms of what they eat, etc. So you are catering for that, so that they are exploiting that opportunity. Critical success factors, your critical success factors. When we look at what you want to do, customer service is going to be a critical success factor, something that you're going to have to keep your focus on to ensure that you get it right. Suitable ambience and cleanliness of restaurants. In a COVID environment, people are looking closer at your environment, at how you do things, at the cleanliness, even in terms of your washrooms. Okay? Well prepared and presented dishes that meet customer needs. Reliable suppliers who provide quality products. You have to have quality products. You have to have reliable suppliers. You cannot be waiting on suppliers and you have meals to prepare. So what are the key considerations for COVID-19? We are looking at the environment, the COVID-19 environment, and then I'm going to look at Vision 2030, because this is what we are working on towards the year 2030, what we expect. The COVID-19 environment, you saw a failure of many supply chains, especially in those involved in health. Your supply chain is you're looking at your suppliers, you do the production, and you're looking at your distributors, that whole line. Reduce revenue and production. I won't go into much detail, we all know it. More use of technology, change in distribution systems, new health and safety requirements, fear and anxiety. You have to spend some time on that, fear and anxiety of even the people who are working with you. More and continued use of virtual labor and increased business and personal risk. Those are some of the things that we are looking at. But Vision 2030, as they looked at as Vision 2020 looked towards the year 2020, they saw greater population and older persons, technology ingrained in human activity and is more disruptive. And that is significant because a disruptive technology can change things around you drastically. In that, we're looking at e-commerce. E-commerce changed how we do things. We're looking at GPS, all of these things, so that we may have a business and there's nothing wrong with our business, but the technology has made it almost irrelevant. So that we have to keep our eye, we have to continually do this thing called environmental scanning. What is happening? How could I reposition myself? Because a lot of businesses are going out of business because of technology. When I was younger, travel agents were very, very busy. Now you can stay home and you can book your own flights. So what is happening in my area that could be a threat to me? Economic activities moving from production of goods to creation of services. And they saw a shift to alternative energy sources towards energy security. And my colleague spoke about that to some extent. I put together the three important tools. Porter's 5 forces, SWOT and PEST, and it may sound very complicated, but it isn't. This is something we have to continue, these are some things we have to continually do, not only as companies, but as individuals. SWOT is an analysis of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The S and W, internal analysis. So if I want to be a doctor and I have chemistry and physics, etc., qualifications, that might be a strength. If I want to be a musician, it would not be. What am I saying? As we rethink what we want to do, we have to continually do this analysis. It's not a one and done thing. It is given where I want to go. What are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? If I want to get an education, GATE is an opportunity. So now we get into opportunities. When we look at opportunities, we use the PEST and the Potter to give us opportunities. What am I saying? The PEST and Potter looks at the environment. So we are looking, when we do SWOT, we are looking internally for strengths and weaknesses. Poor customer service is not a threat, it is a weakness. And we are looking externally for opportunities and threats. So how is this used? We have to choose projects to overcome our weaknesses, exploit opportunities, utilize strengths, and minimize threats. So from the SWOT analysis, we want to get the alternatives. So let us look at PEST. When I tell people to do PEST, I tell them to do it in 3 columns. You have the acronyms on 1 column, and then you will have the opportunities and the threats. Why? Because every environment may give you opportunities and threats. The PEST is just a tool to help you to determine what are the opportunities and threats in the environment. So you're still doing SWOT, you're just using the PEST to help you to get a better, a more comprehensive SWOT done. So in government spending on our house building program provides an opportunity. So that is from the political environment for many small construction companies. Inflation is in the social and is in the economic environment. It's causing persons to have less funds available and is a threat to business. So here I'm giving you in the political an opportunity, in the economic a threat. Let's look at social. Consumer attitudes to healthy eating habits can favor a health food business. And we saw one business just now that is doing meals to cater for these new trends. So that is the opportunity in the social. But one of the biggest problems and threats in the social is crime. Crime is a threat to business persons. So you are actually going through this and saying in each environment, what are opportunities and what are threats? And you have to look at the legal, because there are a lot of new laws that you have to know and adhere to. You have to look at the environment and a lot of concerns in the environment. So there are a lot of threats in the environment, but if you want to do green projects, you may be able to get funding for it. So that might be an opportunity. So where does Potter come in? Potter, the PEST looks at the environment and Potter looks at the market. So Potter identifies and analyzes 5 competitive forces that shape every industry and helps determine an industry's strengths and weaknesses. The 5 forces is frequently used to identify an industry structure to determine corporate strategy. So Potter is going to tell you, for instance, what you should do relative to the market, how you position in the market. What is your competition like? And competition normally would be a threat. Projects that address competitive strategy are much more likely to be successful because they will be important to the organization's competitive position. For example, a company with a cost leadership strategy It attracts customers primarily because its products or services are inexpensive. And such a company might want a project to help reduce inventories and thereby costs. So that whatever you set out to do, you're going to have a strategy to do it. So what am I telling you? Even as an individual, let's go back. We have to be able to develop strategic plans for our lives. The environment is changing, not just for companies, for us. A lot of jobs are now being lost. In every area, machines are taking over. So we have to get and develop multiple sources of income. We have to learn how to utilize or monetize our skills. We have to do strategic planning. We have to look at, if something happens, what are the options? If something happens, okay, for instance, if I get scared in the family, I want to say, but you know something, I should go back to study. In the political environment, there's gates. That is an opportunity. And it could come to Cipriani. So I remember going to church once and the pastor asked him, what is your strategic plan for your life? And I didn't expect that, because I didn't do church for that. But you have to start asking in this environment, do you have a proper strategic plan for your life? If anything happens and the bottoms fall out of your market, what are you going to do? Or your job, you get it. No, I don't want to depress the, anyway. If the worst comes to the worst, what do I do? So how can I monetize? How can I learn more? And it's an environment of continuous learning. We cannot stop learning because things keep changing. What we learned is now almost redundant. As a matter of fact, in project management, every couple of years, the Institute brings out a new framework because best practices change. All right. So 2 tools that you have to also know. And problem tree analysis, fishbone analysis. Because remember, one of the objectives of projects is to resolve a problem. You use problem tree when you have many problems, you don't know what are the main problems, you need to prioritize and you need to get to the causes. You use fishbone when you have identified the problem and you're trying to get the causes. Again, you could come to Cipriani and we'll teach you more on that. So let's go back to the environment, the COVID environment. What do you do? PwC has come up with 6 key areas of focus for organizations with respect to COVID-19. So where are we? We looked at objectives and we are now identifying projects. And I'm telling you, in this environment, you have to relook at your whole organization. And out of that relook is going to come projects. So as you do this, what you're doing it with a difference. You are focusing on certain things that are critical. So it is not just, do I have good customer service? Do I have a good location? Is what is happening with certain areas that are causing problems in COVID. All right, and they have identified these areas. Crisis management and response. That is one of the first areas they came up with, that you need to pay attention to that. Workforce, operations and supply chain, finance and liquidity, trade, tax and regulations, strategy and brand. And I encourage you to actually go to that article, because they don't only talk about these areas as being important. They are talking about what you should do in some of the areas. But crisis management has to be important and it has to play a big part. So I have come up with some areas as you revisit your operations and you rethink that you should bear in mind. The first one is revisit your business model. The term business model refers to a company's plan for making a profit. It identifies the products or service the business plans to sell. It identifies the target market and anticipated expenses. So how you do business. Should you change products? Should you change methods? you have to look and understand that in this environment, there's a need for agility. People want things now. So should I deliver home? All of these are questions you're going to be asking. And you see, this revisiting a business model is very important. And it triggers what happens in your organization. I remember I was in an organization where we thought that the farmers needed to be handheld, so that our technical officers were people from ECIAF and those kinds of organizations, because we felt that when they go on the farm, they should be able to tell the farmer how to farm. And when we revisited our business model, we said, are we in farming or banking? And that triggered a whole change, because now we recognize that we could bring in people with management like myself, expertise. Because if a farmer is farming, they're supposed to know something about farming. Now, it does not mean that we shouldn't get help for them if necessary, but it means that our focus is on ensuring that the loans are properly structured, and we, the farmer has the ability to make a success of it, and we can then point them into directions if they're having a problem on the farm, where to go. So from a situation where we had a whole set of persons with farming experience as technical officers, we went to a whole set of persons that had management and other experiences, so that kind of change took place. And it's something you have to keep doing all the time. Strategic planning is not a one and done thing. Long time we used to do long range plans, but the environment is changing so fast that even if you have a strategic plan at the end of every year, you have to ask yourself, is it still relevant? What am I saying? If my objective was to bring out the best typewriter in the world, and I recognize that computers were about to launch, I still do have a business, because the computers would take over, so that I may need to refocus. And that also requires that we look at our organizations in terms of how we see our organization. If we see our organization as a lipstick company, and something goes wrong and people start not going after lipsticks, we have lipstick, we have no company. But if we see it in the beautification, then we may be able to switch. So we have to get that kind of mindset that helps us to move in whichever direction that we need to move. So we need to revisit or prepare a business continuity plan. Remember what PricewaterhouseCoopers said? Crisis management and response. COVID is not going to be the last crisis you have to deal with. In your business continuity plan, you are looking at ensuring that your business can continue. You may have within it a disaster preparedness plan, but you have to be able to do that. You have to say, if something happens, do different scenarios. If so and so happens, what will I do? And you have to sit down with a team. Project management is not about the project manager locking himself in a room and thinking. It's about him getting the competencies and skills and everything together, and teamwork. Ensure adequate measures are in place to reduce risks, especially of cyber crimes. We are going to have to use the internet more, so that we have to protect ourselves. We have to tell our employees what to expect. They may get an email and they may open it and cause you to have a problem. So that it is not just the people in IT. In this COVID environment, you need to communicate to everybody. They need to know what to do, what not to do, how to move, and you have to have those systems in place. Revisit the communication system and the virtual management system. Pay attention to upskilling staff, especially in the area of digitalization, telecommunication, remote working. You have to train persons in those areas. Now, as you look at your organization and you think of these things, you're going to get a listing of projects that you're going to have to do. Projects bring about change. So if you did not have a system to do remote work, you can develop a project where you put everything in place to do that. Revisit information technology systems. Pay more attention to health, safety, and the environment, especially worker safety and well-being. Ensure legal and regulatory compliance. As we think in terms of the pests, as we think about the legal requirements, we may realize that we need to be OSHA compliant. That is a project to get that done. Ensure security systems operational, especially for issues of data and data privacy. One of the areas that I pulled out from this because it was too long as usual, but I'm thinking if I want to bake a bread that fat people can eat and lose weight, I cannot go to a baker and say bake that bread. I have to pull a team together. We have to do product formulation, we have to do research, we have to do market testing. And the market testing is not, is it tasting good? You might have to get some fat people and carry them for 3 months, show the weight loss, and be able to clinically connect that weight loss with our bread. The market we're in is not the bread market, it is in the health reduction market. Okay, so that you do projects. When we have that bread fixed, we have the distribution, we have the packaging, we have the labeling, then we can prepare the bread if it goes into operations. So your parties that you have, those are projects, because a project is a unique endeavor to achieve a deliverable. You bring on a mass band, that's a project. So you do the projects. The problem is that you don't use the tools and techniques of project management. So this is why the party is there and they realize ICE is not, you have to run for ICE and things like that. So come to Cipriani and we'll show you how to do projects. Okay. So we are now at the project selection. So we have got a list of projects, and the list is going to be so intense that we're going to recognize that we cannot do them all. So what we're going to have to do is to select the best, or those that we can do. So we have to go through a selection process. We have to set up criteria. And COVID is forcing us to look more at innovation, to ensure that we have a strategic fit, to look at things like sustainability and risk. You can put whatever criteria is important for your company. Health, safety, and environment should be a criteria you look at. So as you look at your projects, there's some you're going to throw out automatically. Because if you come up with 15, 20 projects, you're not going to do financial analysis on all of them. So you can sit and you do what you call brainstorming, and you can see, do we have the capacity? Do we have the resources? Does this project make sense to where are we going? And you can come up with a reduced list. Excuse me. But some of the criteria you're going to be looking at are those that I have here. Then you have to get a selection method. Now, whatever model you're using, it should be realistic, it should be capable, it should be flexible, easy to use, data gathering should be possible, and there should be easy computerization. But you basically have two types of models. Non-numeric and numeric. The sacred cow is one I want you all to stop using, or to, okay, let me explain it. The sacred cow is a project that is suggested by a senior and powerful official in the organization. Yes, those people can suggest projects, but we still have the responsibility to evaluate them. And we still have the responsibility to tell them when they could work and when they can't. The problem with that is that a lot of people are scared to tell a powerful person, especially if he's a minister, no. And then we spend money that we should not spend. But we have to understand that we have limited resources, so that if somebody suggests something, we still have to evaluate it and come up with the best and decide if it's worthwhile, given what else we have to do. This is why we should be able to prioritize projects. Then you have the operating necessity, competitive necessity. Your competitor is beating you in the market. You may want to come up with something that would put you in a better position. Product line extension, you may realize that you're not covering all the product lines. For instance, when Chubby came out with the small Chubby that fits in the lunch kit, they were able to capture the market for children. All right. So you may recognize that you need to increase your project line, comparative benefit model. You have several projects are considered, and the one with the most benefit to the firm is selected. So what else we're saying about projects? Projects bring about change. But when we talk in project selection, we're looking at a project as an investment. And we are saying if we invest in one project, it's the opportunity cost of investing in another. So that we should invest in the best projects. But you also have social, environmental, and health and safety issues to consider. I sometimes would start with environmental analysis, because some projects are just no-goes because there are environmental requirements and we may not be able to adhere to them. So social analysis is extremely important. As a matter of fact, that is what government looks at a lot, because government is concerned with equitable and sustainable development. Then, so that the minister cannot go to cabinet and say this is going to make profits, so let us do it. What they may do that if they have a company, a government company, but normally they are looking at developing equitable development involves leveling the playing field so that intended beneficiaries and other stakeholders can express their opinions and participate in the development opportunities created by a project. So equitable, it means that you don't have to be PNM or UNC to get something. Then sustainable development is compatible with its socioeconomic context. The institutions that are expected to implement the project have the capacity to do so and have some sense of ownership of the project's objectives. That is the World Bank definition. But when we talk about sustainable, we also talk about the fact that we can live well today, but our children are going to live well. So we're not taking everything and leaving nothing for them. So what are some of the social issues that governments have to spend money on? It's issues like health, education, water, and sanitation, which contributes to the general quality of life. And remember the theme one, but warrant attention in their own right because they raise particular planning issues. Then we have to look at things like social justice, which includes issues related to equity, human rights, and participation. So you may ask, should companies be involved in social analysis? But it's important, because if your company is seen as big and even international company is seen as not being a good corporate citizen, not contributing to the country, it can have a negative impact on your brand. And many of the agencies are now asking you to do social analysis in some of your projects so that they can, because they are giving money and they want to be able to say that their money is also contributing to having a better society. So those are the non-numeric. The numeric, you have your normal things of profit, profitability, or payback, etc. So you have to come up with, how do I quantify the benefits so that I can come up with some dollar figures so that I can do this. And then you have the numeric scoring models. I would suggest that no matter which model you use, you end up here with a weighted scoring model. Why? It allows you to merge the numeric with the non-numeric, with the financial. You would come up with criteria that is important for your company. The first one we have here is alignment with company's goals, which is the strategic alignment. And we have 3 products and we are looking at them. There's a weighting system. The weighting system says how we weight each. So alignment is 25%. So as product 1 gets 60%, is 60% of 25, which is 15. So we come up with a weighted score for each product. Return on investment is the financial. So right here you have a non-financial and a financial. Then estimated cost of manufacturing costs, customer support, users available technology, has a payback period in line with company policy. Those are criteria. Now we will want to change the criteria. As a matter of fact, when we go back to some criteria, things like innovation, and risk and things like that. And some of the things that we may want to put in, definitely health and safety. And you come up with scores and you choose among them the way it's supposed to get back to 100. So we have gone through the importance of objectives. We have gone through how we select projects, and we want to talk a little bit about design, project design. We have to ensure in project design, we have all the activities that we need to have so that we'll have all the deliverables that we need, and that the deliverables we can contribute, we can ensure that we achieve the objective. So when the Minister of Education looked at the laptop program in 2015, he recognized there was no ICT policy at the Ministry of Education. There was lack of governance structure for the management and monitoring of the ICT programs in schools. There was inadequate ICT supported infrastructure in schools, limited access to internet services, inadequate preparation and training for teachers, and inadequacy in terms of the laptop repair program. If we had designed the laptop program properly, we would have recognized, for instance, that the curriculum had to inform the teacher training. We had to look at the schools. Are they going to be able to use the laptops in the schools? So that project design will tell you what should go where and what are the components you need. So that if we had a laptop program and we only give out computers, we would not achieve any objective except to say we give out computers. Because the objective of giving out computers to school children is that they're going to be able to use it to learn. So that for instance, when they go into the schools, is there somewhere for them to put the computers? What about clouds for the computers? All of those things will be things that you will think about. Do project design with a group. Make sure you have all the activities that will give all the deliverables that will help you to achieve the objective. So what the ministry did is they set a goal to ensure students and teachers are equipped in the classroom to keep up with the international best practices in education. So there was teacher training to develop lesson plans that will include the use of ICT. Obviously, you should have had a curriculum using that. Laptops equipped to be compatible with different connections available at the schools, and the laptops had a warranty. ICT technicians hired to manage the updates, repair, and life of machine. Security measures put in place. So when you're designing projects, think in terms of what is missing. So let's go to our hoop of life, is that? Mm-hmm. Similarly, I'm not going to go into much into that. Some of the components may have been good, but what I would think in terms of is that if you want to do a program that big, you should do a pilot. I can say much more on that program, but I chose not to. You should do a pilot. Do it on a small scale so that you are able to, and even with your company, you want to try something, you don't want to spend a whole set of money. Do it on a small scale, work out the glitches, make sure you have it right, and then you roll it out. I thank you. In completion, let us just look back in terms of, I hope we have covered the need to design projects that satisfy the purposes. We have to keep our eye on the purposes for which the project is authorized, and we have to prioritize projects and link them to our strategic plans.
Very much, Ms. Frederick, for this very insightful and yet again insightful presentation. I sat here for the past 45 minutes and I feel very humbled by the opportunity, because I think you and Akindele would have really project identification and selection. Akindele was able to speak about project selection from an international perspective, alluding to the work of BP and CocaCola. And Teresa, you were able to bring it back home in the local context, where you spoke about project identification and selection from a government perspective, where we were able to allude to the Sustainable Development Goals for TNT, in addition to the project portfolio for the Vision 2030, as well as speak about some of the issues the private sector fraternity, right, are considering at this point in time as they restart their business operations, really bringing all the ideas together with respect to project identification and selection. Of particular note, Akindele, MC Akindele is able to rejoin us. What do you think going forward might be, if I may just have an open banter with you both, what do you think might be some of the important criteria for a project selection mix going forward? We are in July, soon to be August 2020. We are the soon to be end of the current financial year. The price of oil I just checked is about $42 per barrel. We have August 10th elections. A new financial year is upon us, 2020 to 2021. We have the Christmas season, and then we have Carnival, and we have so many issues taking place globally. What do you think might be some of the most pertinent selection criteria for selecting projects within a company's portfolio? Let's say at this point in time, thinking about the longer term trajectory. I just want to bring in Akindele and Teresa. I know I put you guys on spot. I know it's way past our lunchtime.
Thanks for the question, Nigel. And it's a good one. It's a very pertinent one, and one that I'm hoping that organizations, the leadership, their management, their boards are given consideration to. So I would have mentioned before that we are living in let's say some level of uncertainty. Is and we know that, let's say, consumers are spending less, persons are buying less vehicles. I think there are some statistics that said that there was a drop in vehicle purchase locally. Persons are holding back from a lot of discretionary spending. So similar to what would have happened with Coca-Cola, where let's say they were focusing on their core brands, I would say a business in their portfolio, they would need to also streamline. But they need to go through an exercise and look back at what are some of their top earners. Were they making most of their revenue, or even if they might have been, were they even more profitable? But maybe you might have high volume sales with some products, or pursuing certain services. Those may be managed inefficiently. So either we do an exercise, a project in and of itself, really, in determining how could we be more efficient, how could we do more with less. So part of a strategic exercise would be to look at a portfolio of products or portfolio of services, determine what would be more profitable. So I'm just gonna give, let's say, that one criteria that would be considered, which would be pursuing projects that are more profitable. I might also add pursuing projects that have a higher likelihood of success. So trying to eliminate that risk of loss or risk of failure. Those I think those things would have a higher criteria in this particular environment.
Thanks, Akindele. I know I put you guys on spot here, but definitely organizations would have to do an audit of their resources, their capacity, their motivation, bearing in mind their business outcomes, and rethink projects within their portfolio. As Teresa mentioned, organizations should continue to use numeric methods as well as non-numeric methods, quantitative and qualitative methods, to evaluate, to audit, to analyze, to shortlist, and eventually select the best projects with the greatest throughput. Teresa, I just want to bring you there in the discussion.
Yeah, I think what we have to do is to recognize that things have changed.
Yeah.
And we have to multi-skill. And probably the better word is to diversify, but I don't want to use that because that tends to speak to a lot of investment.
Yeah.
But it is not for a business. You have to look at what worked during COVID. How were you able to survive if you were able to survive at all? So that if customers, you have to look at your customer base. If they're not able to come to you,
yes,
probably you can go to them. You understand? So this is why business modeling is so important. How do you change? And you have to ask a lot of hard questions.
Yeah.
Because some of you would have very little revenue.
Yes.
And you have your biggest expenditure is rent for an office. You have to ask yourself, do I need an office? Now, some people get crazy in terms of, have to have a mortgage and those kind of things. I'm not saying you shouldn't have your own home, but if things fall out, then you have to recognize a mortgage. No, I'm being controversial here. It's just rentals with benefits.
Yeah.
Because whereas your landlord might wait 2 to 3 months, the bank wants money every month. So that if you cannot afford that, then you have to step down and say, what can I afford and stay sane? And in this environment, staying sane is important. So that I have to ask myself, again, revisit your model. How many people really come to the office? Is there a need for me to have an office? I'm not saying go and just give up your offices. You have to plan what next. And in the what next, do you know that you can make arrangements with people who have very good facilities, and you could come in and have customer meetings there. You understand? So it looks just as good. So that we have to think out of the box. Because if I don't have revenue, can I pay this man all this rent? Is this office bringing in revenue for me? Is this new car that I want going to bring in revenue for me? What about staying with my old car? You understand what I mean? We have to understand that when we leave Trinidad and we go away, we take jobs that we wouldn't take in Trinidad. And it is because our friends do not normally help us. When I worked at the ADB, there were officers who used to go into the market on a weekend and sell. But other officers, if they go, they're very friends with heckle them. We have to get bold. We have to do what is needed for us to survive. We have to forget the mama guy and all of that and say, what do I need to put in place? So I used to have an office, people will say, what's going on with you? What I need is revenue. So how do I get the revenue, and how do my expenses have to make sense? I have to think innovative. Yes. There may be, I'm not as a labor college, we have to be concerned with workers, but if we do some business analysis, we may realize that we have a lot of workers who are doing things that the computer could do better. So that probably what we need to do is to find jobs for them that are more meaningful. So some of them could be helping us with deliveries. Are you understanding me? I'm not saying get rid of them, but we have to think in terms of how we survive. Just as how you have to put objectives as the top, let us put survival at the top. And whatever you have to do that is not illegal, you have to do it. So it does not matter in this environment that people say she is fallen, that is their business. They know their business, you know yours. What do you have to do as an organization? So you go through, you look at all that workers are doing. Does this make sense? Does that make sense? What could we do better? Pull in the workers. They have ideas. When I had to do change things in the clerical area, I call the clerks, because they are able to suggest to me things that I would not know about their work. So sit down and brainstorm. Get this period. Don't rush and go into an area. Don't rush and establish an organization. Test the business model. if you are good, and what I'm talking about is developing multiple sources. If you are baking bread well, you can start baking it and giving out the bread to your people and trying and seeing what is the response. What are they saying about it? Similarly, as a business, you can talk to your distributors more. You can find out what works and what doesn't. Some of you, there are your products spoiling on shelves. You have to get out of your office and go and see what's happening. Talk to the supermarkets, find out why your product is not moving as the others. You have to get aggressive in the marketplace. I understand, but you need to research. I tell people who are running a parlor, have hours. You can't have somebody going down to your parlor in the hot sun 3-4 times a day and meet it closed. So that but you need the time to go out and see what's happening outside in the market. So for perhaps 12 to 1, I am not available. So you have to put systems in place that will make sense to you and your customers. I hope I helped.
Yes.
But think innovation.
Yes.
Think speed, think agility. And the thing about it is we get petrified when we see the big companies. But do you know there might be a big burger joint and a man will push a tray near a burger place and be able to sell out?
Yes.
When I look at Arangways, almost everywhere are the same vegetables, all of them looking fresh because they're bold enough to somebody else will say there are too many, they are going there. And when you're selling something everybody sells, what you have to do is to ensure that your customer service is good. When somebody walks in, you have to want to walk back in. So that these are the things you have to do. It's not about not doing it, it's about doing it properly.
Thanks very much, Teresa. Really appreciate this practical insight. And as we said earlier, COVID-19 must not only be seen as a threat. We must see it as an opportunity, right, to be analyzed, to be studied, and to take advantage of. You know, I particularly like, Teresa, how your presentation, as well as Akindele's, were able to touch on every sector within Trinidad and Tobago and forces every sector in Trinidad and Tobago, procurement, construction, the private, the public sector, to rethink what they do and how they do it, recognizing capacity, recognizing resources, recognizing the need to meet business outcomes, moving closer towards the customer. How can we reorient our business model to move closer to the customer and deliver services in a much more customer-centric manner? So thanks very much to you both, Teresa and Akindele, for responding to the call to present. I know that you guys have a very active portfolio, Akindele in your role of the construction sector, and Teresa in your role of the procurement sector, as well as the college. Thank you both immensely for responding to the call, and we do look forward to your continued contribution and participation and brand loyalty to Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. I know it's nearing 2 o'clock, so I will not keep the team back any further, right? So I was simply like to engage on any questions that any of the participants may have this afternoon. Any questions? If you guys have questions, please feel free to post it to the message window within the YouTube channel at the right of your screen. I know many of you may have returned to work or trying to make a graceful exit out of Port of Spain due to the inclement weather at this time. It's raining by me. Any questions at this point in time? I have our research assistants at the college monitoring the YouTube channel for questions. All right, no questions at this point in time. So I guess the entire team may have returned to work, right? As I conclude, I would like to say thanks very much to Team Cipriani for designing and really orchestrating another successful event, the second installment of our project management webinar series. Members of the team will include the IT department. The IT department is like a doctor. They are always on call. Anytime we may have a question, some technology glitch, they are always there. I think there might be about 3 technicians very close to Ms. Frederick at this point in time. So Antonio and the entire team, thank you guys very much. Members of the marketing, the stakeholder department, you the presenters, Teresa and Akindele, and above all, you the participants, right? the participants. The real gist of this webinar series is not the knowledge which is imparted, but the application of the knowledge to help you manage your projects at the business level as well as at the personal level. So definitely, we would have imparted some insightful, practical, practitioners-oriented strategies to help you go back to the workplace to manage, to select, to design, to manage your projects as you continue to design and execute. I know the entire team will be looking forward to our third session, and our third session, right, is another event of the semester, the event of the summer, as I would like to say, because it focuses on ICT and how we can optimize ICT to deliver on projects in a COVID-19 environment. Yesterday, we were able to secure the president of Project Management Institute Southern Caribbean Chapter, Ms. Glynis Alexander Tam, to be one of the presenters, as well as Mr. John Lewis, one of the ICT directors at the office, the ICT director at the office of the Honorable Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So we were able to secure these two presenters for our third installment, right? Scheduled for Thursday, 6 August 2020, between 12 noon, right? And I know those discussions will be yet again a very insightful, research-driven, right? Where you, the participants, will have the opportunity to ask questions, right? Please look out for further details on our Facebook page, our website. Please feel free to contact us directly at prmonline at cclcs.edu.tt. Next time we meet on Thursday, August 6th. Please be very careful with inclement weather, which is pending with Tropical Storm Gonzalo. At this point in time, I've been looking at the Trinidad and Tobago weather system on Facebook, and it promises to get a bit shady in the coming days and so on. So you guys keep safe, keep on high ground. To the entire team, let's continue building a COVID-19 project management community under the CCLCS brand. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Yeah.